Hello, and welcome to The Artist Pivot, a weekly conversation with artists about their current pivot, past pivots, and every pivot in between. I am your host, Ayana Major Bay, an actress who wants to educate, empower, and celebrate artists so they have no option but to thrive. On this episode, I am joined by former stand-up comedian, former gag gift business owner, and now simplicity coach, Delanie Fischer. She has made many a pivot and has found that conscious consumption and taking a fun and simple approach to her new endeavors proves to be the way to go. We discuss her former life as a stand-up comedian, how she wants to provide a holistic approach in her business coaching, and how artists have the power and everything at their disposal to put their own art into the world. Here's our conversation. We made it.
Yes.
We made it. Yes.
Another day in quarantine.
Another day in quarantine.
Figuring it out.
We're figuring it out, y'all. We're figuring it out. We're on the microphone. We had some technical difficulties this morning. But with me, I am delighted to say that I have Miss Delanie Fischer on the microphone with me. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Of course. I'm excited as well. So how have you been doing in these times, in these quarantine times?
Yeah. You know, what's weird is my day-to-day did not change much because I had been working from home for about a year prior to, the world falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was already working remotely. So it felt, I knew a lot was going to be changing, but my day-to-day did not feel a whole lot different. So I guess I'm, grateful
Mm-hmm.
for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely was a shock to the system when everything happened. And I just tried to do what I could within my control. That's all we can do, so.
Yes, it is. You're so right.
A lot of hot tea and baths and praying that everything would be okay.
Yes.
How about you?
Exactly. I mean, same. I wasn't working from home. I was actually out doing a contract and that show got canceled. So I was forced to come home. So for me, it was definitely like, okay, what do I do now? Like, how do I pivot now? What's happening? Our industry is shut down. What do I do? And so that has been the process for me this whole year, trying to figure out, okay, Ayana, what do you want to do? You can't get on stage. Yeah. So what else do you love and how else can you create? That's been
Absolutely.
the year for me. And I know that you had a couple things planned. I know you had a live tour for your podcast that you were planning this year and also in-person retreat for entrepreneurs and podcasters.
Yes, that is true. So I guess I think, I felt like my day-to-day, didn't change a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as my podcast goes, yes, we were going to go to the, top 5 cities where all of our listeners were and do a live tour. We had kind of already started that process, had done a couple shows. And then, that was all canceled, to be determined. And then, yes, I was going to hold a weekend retreat for women in business, basically. And that is also indefinitely postponed. So I felt like, and then also, we're not recording in our podcast studio. We're recording remotely. So we had to figure all that out. And all of us are not tech savvy people. So that was definitely new skills, had to be learned. But I think ultimately I was grateful that my bread and butter, I guess, was okay. And, that was a pivot I had made only a year prior. So if I, hadn't done that, I would have been, working from home after, suddenly instead of, already kind of being in that rhythm. But and also, we're supposed to get married soon.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if that's really happening. So a lot of things are being canceled and postponed. But trying to work with it and pivot, of course.
Yes, exactly. Gotta pivot. And I know that you've actually had a lot of pivots in your life and in your career so far. So let's start at the beginning and just give me the timeline of your pivots.
Oh, yes. Okay. So I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with my life. I think I'm still figuring it out. I'm open,
Yeah.
But I went to school as an art major. That's what I went there for. Pivoted right away out of that. Decided I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was undeclared for most of college. And then I think end of my junior year, I went in to like meet with a guidance counselor, and they're like, yeah, what's your major going to be? You should probably pick something because you're graduating next year.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that I had a lot of religious studies credits. So I just said, okay, I'll major in that. So I ended up majoring in religions of the world. Basically, that's what I studied.
Okay.
And I loved it. It was fun. I had no idea if I was going to use it or what I was going to do with it. And so I graduated with a religious studies degree, not knowing what the heck I was going to do next. And right before I graduated, I started doing stand-up comedy. So I decided, all right, I'll take a stab at this. And I did stand up for 6.5 years. And then towards the end of that, really felt like the lifestyle just was not for me. I was really depressed, performer's lifestyle. It can be very hard, obviously,
yes.
as you
yes.
know.
Uh-huh.
And I'm an introvert. I'm a homebody. I did not like being out every night and gone on the weekends. I don't really like flying very much. And I was flying all over the place and traveling all the time, and just was really going against kind of what my needs were. And so I launched a business from there, and I was also working a day job at the time. And I felt like this is hopefully going to get me out of this day job I don't really like, and out of stand-up. And so I launched a gag gift business.
Okay.
Where
Yeah.
I drew funny things on coffee mugs, and it worked. So I was able to leave my day job and stop doing stand-up within a year of launching that business. And then I was working for myself from home, and all of a sudden, a lot of artists and entrepreneurs and performers were reaching out to me saying, how the heck how are you making a full-time living painting silly things on coffee mugs? Can you please help me, with my own project, my own business? So then I started consulting with people. I started helping other entrepreneurs, fell in love with that. And then recently, within the last few months, I closed down my product-based business to consult and coach full-time. So a lot of pivots in the last 3 years. I mean, tons, constant. I feel like I'm a professional pivoter. I feel
right. Yeah, that should be your title, professional pivoter. Like, you did that in 3 years. You've done all of these pivots. Like, wow, we all need to step up our game.
So crazy. I didn't plan, for any of it. It just kind of happened organically. And I'm like, I'm so exhausted with myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to be next? How am I going to rebrand and pivot next? I'm tired. I just want to stick to one thing.
I hear you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But like you said, you kind of just let it happen.
Yeah.
You went with the flow. So you went to school, started as an art major,
right,
but then left with a religious studies degree, then stand-up comedian, then your gag gift business, and now you're a consultant and a coach.
Yeah, exactly.
If you probably would have told your younger self when you went into school as an art major that you'd be doing this now, you wouldn't believe yourself.
No, not at all. If my younger self is like, yeah, at the age of 30, you're going to be a simplicity coach for entrepreneurs. I'm like, okay, first of all, what the hell is that? Second, no, that sounds terrifying.
Right. Exactly. And so explain a little bit more about your simplicity coaching.
Yes. So it's basically a mix of business coaching and life coaching, but all of my action steps and, mindset work for my clients is very simple. I've kind of taken on this title because this is the feedback my clients have given me. I'm very much a believer in, you don't have to be doing everything and be on every platform and making yourself crazy. Just pick the things that you really love doing and be very intentional with how you're putting things into the world and what makes you happy. So yeah, I've taken on this title of simplicity coach because it's definitely a holistic approach to business coaching, but very practical, simple steps. I help people build and scale their businesses, but doing it in a way that doesn't overwhelm them. That's pretty much it.
Right. Gotcha.
Yes.
Simple.
Yes.
Simple.
I help them free up time and focus on what they love doing and make money with ease. If if it feels really hard or you don't feel excited to do something, chances are it's not in your zone of genius, and you should be allowing yourself to do the thing that you really love and outsource the rest, get help with the rest. So I'm a big believer in, be good at one thing and get help with everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. There it is. Simply put, that's the one sentence.
Yeah.
Be good at one thing, get help with everything else.
Yeah, exactly. We all have different strengths for a reason, so we can come together and work together. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I would say in this time, what has this time given you as a creative and as an artist who's clearly reinventing herself, always oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and do that.
Yeah.
But what has it given you time to even focus on that you probably didn't focus on before?
Oh, such a good question. Honestly, I think it's given me permission to do more of what I want. Honestly, I think without a lot of the distractions and obligations and things like that, it's made me kind of reevaluate what I really want to be doing with my time, who I really want to be around. Because we've all learned a big lesson that we are not in control of really anything. We're in control of a very small amount, and it just kind of put things into perspective that I was filling my time with a lot of stuff that didn't bring me joy, and I don't want to do that anymore, because time is really all we have. It's the most valuable resource that we have. So I didn't want to keep wasting it. I felt like I was wasting it in a lot of ways, doing things that I thought I should be doing, or, running my business the way that I should, being fearful that I'm going to let other people down. So I've really just done more of what I wanted, and it's felt really good. And my business has grown because of it, and my relationships have strengthened, and I just feel a lot happier.
Yeah.
And it was scary in the beginning, but I feel guilty kind of saying out loud that I've enjoyed quarantine a little bit. I've enjoyed being able to just spend time reflecting and doing my own thing.
Right.
I know there's a lot of horrible things going on, but that is some silver lining I have found.
Yes, exactly. And I would say don't feel guilty for that silver lining.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, we are acknowledging there are some terrible things happening right now, but finding those little pieces, those little glimpses of light and joy. And that's when that I have a second to nurture these relationships in my life. I have a second to nurture my business, because thankfully I still have my health right now in this quarantine time.
Exactly. Yeah, quarantine's made me feel more grateful than I've ever felt. Definitely.
Yes. I hear you on that. And so I would also like to ask you, what do you hope that the world learns, but more specifically the entertainment industry and also business, especially when it comes to women, what we learn coming out of this quarantine? Because there's been so many things that have always been there, but the rug has been pulled back.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I hope the entertainment industry realizes that the artists have the power. I really do. I think they should hopefully continue and learn to give artists the creative freedom that I believe they deserve, because we could do stuff on our own. I think people are learning we have everything at our fingertips to put our art into the world. And a lot of the middlemen can be cut out. So I'm hoping they are more collaborative and recognize that the industry is changing and kind of get out of their old ways of doing things. And oh my gosh, as far as being inclusive, please, like everybody should be part of everything. We need to feature all the voices that need to be heard from every angle, from start to finish of every project in this industry and every organization and every business. If we all do what we can, if everybody does what's within their power and control, the world would be very different. I think I think it can be very overwhelming to think about, oh my gosh, how am I one person going to change the world and impact the world? But we can impact our families and our communities, and we can control how we run our business and the education that, we're, doing ourselves. So I just think it's just about time. And I'm, I went through a range of emotions, of course, realizing that, look, I'm a white person. I'm a white woman who has a lot to learn, but very quickly, was told like that my feeling, it's not about me. Like my guilt and my shame and my embarrassment is not helping anybody. So I'm listening to the people that I need to be listening to, and I am putting everything into action that I can. I think we've talked a little bit, Ayana, of I went really hard. I went really hard because I'm like, oh my gosh, for 30 years, I feel like I have been blinded. I haven't done the work. I felt like I had so much catching up to do. And I was like, okay, I need to catch up in 2 weeks. Like I need to watch everything and read everything and listen to everything. And it's entire lifetime. It's an entire lifetime that you need to be dedicated to this work. So I burnt out. I'll be honest. I got really burnt out. I was attending as many protests as I could go to. I was looking into all the organizations I could be donating to, was watching everything, and knew that this is not work that we can get burnt out on. White people cannot get burnt out on this work. I have to look at how I can make this part of my habits and how I've formed other habits. So with the podcast, we have a big platform, and we realize that we weren't being as structured as we could have been with, who we're having on the show and when and all that stuff. So we restructured our whole show to where 25 to 50% of our episodes are BIPOC or LGBTQ plus, members. And so that's something that we did right away. In my own business, I have, discounted rates for anybody, who's part of a marginalized group. And I have automated donations set up. Instead of thinking, okay, I'm going to just, once a month, I'm going to research everything and donate. It's just about working those things into the bones of our business and our show. Like it just needs to be part of it. So those are a few things. And, I'm doing a little bit at a time because I know that's the way that it's going to actually stick and make an impact. So, just a few of those things, but yeah.
Yes. And I understand that. Yeah, it is about taking your time and not going, okay, I need to consume all of this information right now and make an immediate change.
Right.
Because you're going to burn yourself out, like you said, and it's also not going to last.
Exactly.
It needs to become second nature for all of us.
Yeah.
Let me check my privilege at the door. What have I been contributing to this? Have I been, or not even contributing, just ignoring it?
Yeah.
Did I not see this? Did I not? Okay, now that we see it, great. Now I can do something about it. But in those little steps,
Right.
And okay, so great. So our podcast is now going to intentionally feature people who, guess we realized we didn't feature before. Oh, okay, that's a change. Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
So now my business, I'm going to focus on giving discounts to people in marginalized communities. Okay, did I not do that before? Oh, I didn't. Okay, now I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's, I appreciate that you have acknowledged that, oh, maybe I was a little blinded. But you're going to say, okay, I'm not going to remain blinded.
Right.
And I am going to be part of the solution.
Right.
To the lack of inclusivity or the lack of diversity in the entertainment industry, in business, in women in business.
Absolutely.
Because that's a whole nother,
gosh, yes.
can of worms as well.
Yes, exactly. I think before the social media movement is really what woke me up, because I started listening to women of color, and I was, watching all their videos, watching them face to face, and realizing that I've been in the dark, and it's not an excuse, and I need to get into action immediately. And everything I felt was more kind of sporadic before, like on our podcast, we would have women of color on, we would have, but it would be like, okay, who's available, this date? And we would just go on a list and be like, okay, great. But we weren't being intentional. And that's a problem, so those were changed. I found my virtual mentor, because of social media, Rachel Rogers, who is amazing. And I'm part of her club.
Yeah.
I stopped giving certain people money and I started giving certain people money.
Mm-hmm.
I left, I was taking a course from somebody and I decided not to purchase any further courses from them because of how they responded to everything. And I kind of started looking at who I was following and who I was trying to mold my business after. And I realized that our values were not the same. And so I unfollowed a lot of people, especially in this influencer coaching industry. I thought a lot of them were full of BS. And I said, I need to find somebody who is, who's honest and anyway, so I found Rachel, and I've been so happy. It's the greatest money I've ever spent. I can't believe I hadn't heard of her before. I'm kicking myself that I hadn't, discovered her years ago. But I'm happy to be part of her community now, and her entire team at Hello 7 is amazing. It's just, there's a big difference. There's a big difference in the content that I was ingesting before the Amplified Melanated Voices movement and to what I'm doing now. So I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes. I've already made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I'm a podcaster with a pretty big platform, so we are under a microscope about a lot of things. But that doesn't scare me because of course, I'm imperfect. I'm gonna mess up, but I'm not. I'm okay with that because that's besides the point,
Right.
So,
but you're willing to mess up. You're willing to make the mistake because you're like, I want to
Yeah.
learn. I want to improve.
Yes.
And I want to include, like, okay, I have been sitting in this position of privilege and realizing I haven't been inclusive. So now I want to be, and you're going to make mistakes.
Yes. Yeah.
But isn't that the point? Like, that's how we progress. We're all going to make mistakes, but that's how progress is made.
Right. Yeah. I don't mind being corrected. I don't claim to know everything. So if somebody corrects me and says, hey, by the way, that's not the correct term now, I say, thank you. Thank you for telling me. I don't know if I would have found that out on my own, or maybe it would have taken a lot more time. So thanks for, giving me that time. So that's kind of what it looks like right now for me as far as the practical steps. And of course, reading a bunch of stuff, and I, signed up for a lot of people's newsletters. And that I love Rachel Ricketts, her spiritual activism course is fantastic. She's got so many. So I'm just trying to shift like the habits I had. I'm just basically shifting those over into listening to other people.
Understood. So I would also ask you, what advice would you give to artists and other creatives right now who are, having a hard time? There are moments you're like, I just want to lay in bed. I don't want to do this. I'm depressed. I'm upset. Broadway announced a little while ago that they are not expecting to reopen until the summer of next year. And that, that one hit me hard.
Oh
So
gosh.
just in general, what would you say, how can artists and creatives pivot right now? Like, what would be your advice?
I think, artists and creatives, I don't think we are short on ideas. I think that's just how our brain works, right? Like, even though I'm kind of like entertainment industry adjacent now because I have the podcast, but now, I'm a coach, I still have a Google Doc filled of like 600 ideas, TV show ideas and sketches and podcasts and books and this and that. And so I would just say, instead of looking at this time like you are hindered from doing what you love or you can't, why don't you, kind of go internal and think about what's a project, like a dream project that you had that you think would be fun that you didn't have time for before this, and do it and just make it happen. whatever that looks like, whether it's, a virtual show or it's a book or it's a podcast or just anything, doing a sketch, just anything like that. The nice thing is that the work is us, like we,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we are all we need to put things out there. And there's so many different ways that you can. So I would just say, don't stop creating. Of course, if you feel depressed and you feel like you need to rest, do that too. Like, give yourself permission to be sad and grieve and take that time. But then if you feel like, a little hint of excitement over something, just go do it. Just start working on it. Like you started this podcast, right, Ayana? Like,
Yes.
this is a new podcast. So you're,
Yeah.
you're proof that you did that,
Right.
and I think, we don't, of course, having the theaters, having the agents, being on set, those are all wonderful things, but you don't need them to create your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't. You just need yourself. So, make the painting or teach the class or start your podcast, start your side hustle, whatever it is. Yeah, you're in control of that.
That's true. That was beautifully put. We are in control of it. And all of those outside sources help, like you said, the stage, the agents, the set, all of that. But ultimately, we are in control.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We were talking a little bit about women, and I think that's kind of where my head and heart are right now, is women need to be out there more.
Mm-hmm.
They need to charge what they're worth. They need to raise their rates.
Mm-hmm.
The statistics of the fact that, if you're in is it heteronormative or heterosexual relationship and you both work full time, the woman will still do more housework than the male counterpart. Stop doing that. Right? We have all this, are basically told to take care of everybody and everything and everyone and put ourselves last. And no, put yourself first, the way that everybody else seems to be, aka white men. And
Yes.
I think I really would like to just empower women to do what they want to do and say what they want to say and make money and stop doing all the chores and ask for help and outsource and make your partner do some of that stuff. So that's it.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I agree with you. I double down on that statement. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. You're awesome, and I love your show.
Oh, thank you. But before I let you go, I do have one other thing to say to you.
Yes.
And that is that I acknowledge you, I celebrate you, and I uplift you.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Back at you.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Delanie, thank you so much for sharing. You, my dear, are definitely a professional pivoter and good at it. Reevaluating our values and being conscious of what we consume, especially on social media, is a pivot in itself. So ask yourself, what habits have you developed that you've had time to discover in 2020? Do you want to change some of them or even nurture some? Since next week is Thanksgiving here in the U.S., there will be no new episode. But not to worry, I'll be back with 3 more episodes in December to wrap up Season 1. In this week break, I encourage you to go back and listen to your favorite episodes so far, or listen to ones you haven't yet. Thank you again, Delanie, and thank you for tuning in. I'll speak to you soon.